Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. How many long A's are in Radha? 2, right? Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabhagi Varadhari. Gopi Jana Vallabhagi Varadhari. Jashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Jashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Jamuna Tira Bana Chari. Jamuna Tira Bana Chari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabhagiri Varadhari. Jashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Jamuna Tira Bana Chari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhams Paribrajak Acharya Ashtottara Rishi Srimad Divine Grace A.C. Bhakta Maharaj Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nama Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem se kaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivashadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda ki jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath Shyam Kundradi Govardhan ki jai. Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Navadip Mayapur Dham ki jai. Ganga Mai ki jai. Jamuna Mai ki jai. Tulsi Devi ki jai. Bhakti ki jai. Shramaveta Pinda ki jai. Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga Hari Hari Bol. Nama Om Vishnu Pa. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Vasudevaya. Bhagavad Gita. There's no Bhagavad Gita in there, but I have the verse, but I don't have the purport here. If you have a, we're going to study Bhagavad Gita chapter 8. Does anybody know the title of chapter 8? Very good. Verse number 16. Abrahma bhuvana loka puna avartinorjuna mamupete tu kaunteya punarjanmana vidyate. Abrahma bhuvana loka puna avartinorjuna mamupete tu kaunteya punarjanmana vidyate. Abrahma bhuvana loka puna avartinorjuna mamupete tu kaunteya punarjanmana vidyate. Gents. Thank you. Mamupete tu kaunteya punarjanmana vidyate. Mamupete tu kaunteya punarjanmana vidyate. Abrahma bhuvana loka punar avartinorjuna punarjanma. Vaishnavis. Abrahma bhuvana loka punarvar mamupete tu kaunteya punarjanmana vidyate. Come on, one more. Aloka mana vidyate. Abrahma bhuvana, up to the Brahma Loka planet. Loka, the planetary systems. Puna, again. Avartina, returning. Arjuna, O Arjun. Mam, unto me. Upetya, arriving. To, but. Kaunteya, O son of Kunti. Puna, Janma, rebirth. Na, never. Vidyate, takes place. Okay. From the highest planet in this material world down to the lowest, all are places of misery, wherein repeated birth and death take place. But one who attains to my abode, O son of Kunti, never take birth again. Purport. All kinds of yogis. You don't have to repeat this one. Kana, Hatha, etc. Or Krishna consciousness. Before they can go to Krishna's transcendental abode and never return. In the highest material planets, the planets of the demigods, are again subjected to repeated birth and death. As persons on earth are elevated to higher planets, people on higher planets such as Brahmaloka, Chandraloka, and Indraloka fall down to earth. The practice of sacrifice called Panchagna Vidya, recommended in the Chandogya Upanishad enables one to achieve Brahmalok. But if on Brahmaloka one does not cultivate Krishna consciousness, then he must return to earth. Those who progress in Krishna consciousness on the higher planets are gradually elevated to higher and higher planets, and at this time of the universal devastation, to the eternal spiritual kingdom. Baladev Vidyabhushan, in his commentary on Bhagavad Gita, quotes this verse: Brahmana Shahate Sarve Samaprapte, of this material universe, Brahma and his devotees who are constantly engaged in Krishna consciousness are all transferred to the spiritual universe according to their desires. Om Agyana Timirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuran Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Nama Shri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Shayam Rupa Kadahmakyam Dadatisha Padantikam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Before speaking, I would like to ask permission and blessings from all devotees, and particularly those who are senior to me, either by age or by advancement in Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna. You know who you are. Hare Krishna. Thank you. So this verse has something to do with the higher planets to the lowest. All are places of, what was that? Misery. Okay. Misery. Another word for misery is suffering, right? Suffering. So if God is a good God, you believe that? God is good? Yeah. Why does he make us suffer? You and me. Why? And think about it. Think about it. So, in my experience, the first time, I never thought about that. You know, as a kid, you don't think about that kind of stuff. You forget that stuff. But I first had to come to grips with that question in high school in Indiana. I was a junior in high school. And we were assigned to read a book called The Book of Job. Have you ever heard that book? Anybody heard that book before? Yeah, it's the Old Testament of the Bible. Yeah. We had to read it, surprisingly, in our English class. And so I was thinking about this in relation to this verse. So what lessons are included in that teaching? And I was comparing and contrasting those teachings and what we get from the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. You got it? You follow? Okay. So you might know, some of you might know the story of the Book of Job. And, it's been touted as the greatest poem of ancient times. Did you know that? Oh, I thought that was pretty interesting. And it centers around the experiences of a man named Job. And he lived in a land called, have you heard of the land of Oz? It wasn't Oz. It was Uzi instead of Ozi. But anyway, I don't know if there's any relation, but you're following me. The land of Oz. And this Job was known to be a very pious man who always, I don't think he chanted the Hare Krishna mantra, but he was always praising God. And he had lots of good stuff, like he was a healthy guy. He had lots of wealth. Is anybody looking for wealth here? Be honest. Is anybody looking? He had lots of cattle. It says cattle. Doesn't say what he was doing with the cattle. You follow? He had lots of cattle, and he had lots of children, land and children. Yeah. A beautiful wife with many sons and daughters. So it's kind of like the perfect situation, right? I mean, people come from India to here just so they can have that. I don't know. Anyway. So as the plot unfolds, it's quite interesting. There's a discussion between God and you know who? Satan or the devil, right? So you know what the devil says? He says, the only reason Job praises you and is so pious, the only reason is he's got all this stuff. And if he didn't have this stuff, he'd curse you. Isn't that very interesting? I mean, so usually, isn't it true, not only in the Christian religion, but also in the many kinds of aspects of Hinduism, we think that the result of being pious is you get stuff. Therefore, you say there's this. Why? Artha. You get, and then artha. Why artha? Then kama. Mukti, but usually people forget about the mukti part. Dharma, artha. And in the Christian realm, they have something called have you heard of this? The prosperity gospel. So if you're really a religious person, you get stuff. That's the measure of your being spiritual, is that you get all these nice things, all these perks. And also, has anybody ever done Satyanarayan Puja? Satyanarayan Puja? What's the goal of Satyanarayan Puja? Get stuff, right? Isn't it? Hey, get stuff. Or you say, Yojave Palapave, Dukavina Shek. Anyway, we get stuff. That's religion, right? Yeah. Actually, Srila Prabhupada, he came to United States and he went to Ohio State University in 1969. It's a very interesting thing. And you can actually listen to the lecture he gave in a big coliseum or auditorium with all these students. And he was speaking there, and he said, it was very interesting. He said, God, the purpose of life is to develop love for God. I know that people, they pray to God, oh God, give us our, what is that? Are you sure of that? Yeah. And so Srila Prabhupada said, actually, that is love of bread, not love of God. And what the students did? You know what the students did when they had it was very interesting. It was a very interesting thing. Yeah. They stood up and they gave a standing ovation. Yeah. So there's this current in religion that what is religion about? Religion is about getting stuff. Well, we'll talk about that later, but you know that in Srimad Bhagavatam, Dharma projita kaitavota paramoni matsaranam satam vedyam vastavamata vastu shivaram tapratun mulanam. This Bhagavad religion is not about getting stuff. Really, it's not. So that's a very important point. So what happens is, and we're back to the story of Job. So it doesn't say this, you kind of get the idea that God says, oh yeah? Satan says, if you didn't have all this stuff, he would curse you. So God says, all right, take it away. You can take away all of this stuff and see what happens. Boom. Okay. So that's exactly what Satan does. The kids all die. Shocking, right? He loses his wealth. He loses his land. He loses his cattle. Even he loses his health. He gets a disease where you get, blood body and you're itching and scratching and all that stuff. So you can think about it. I mean, this isn't just a myth. It's think about it. This happens suffering, right? The only person who stood by him was his wife. She didn't die. But anyway, she was still with him, but she had her doubts. She says, how is it that God is doing this to you? How is it possible? What kind of good God is this that's making you suffer? So she had her doubts. But initially, Job says, you know what? In life, you got to accept the bad things with the good. He didn't exactly say, Matras Parshastu Kaunteya Shito. You know that verse? What is that? How does that go? Non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress, because everybody is going through that. So he says something like that. So he says that at the beginning. He says that at the beginning. And then, but he continues to suffer. And then some of his friends come over. Now he has got a bunch of friends, and they say, you know what? We know that God is just. We know that. So your suffering, the cause of your suffering must be that you've committed some bad, some sinful things, and this is the reaction. Okay? What do you call that? What do you call that? Karma. Okay, yeah. So they're saying this is a result of you being bad, some karmic reaction. And he says, no. My whole life, I've never done anything, any impious thing. No, we don't know about those cattle, right? We don't know. You follow? We didn't know if he's killing those cattle. But anyway, at least in his mind, he's thinking, I didn't do any evil thing in my whole life. And they say, no. You must have done something, otherwise you wouldn't get this suffering, because God is just. So you know what? You know what Job does? He rejects them. He says, you're not my friend. I don't believe you. I know I'm a just person. He rejects them. So now he's pretty much alone, just he and his wife. And the suffering continues. And what happens when suffering continues and continues? What happens? Have you ever had experience like that? Like a pain that doesn't go away, just kind of wears you down after a while, doesn't it? No. So after a while he's thinking, maybe it's just better that I kill myself. Really? Or maybe it's better, at least I should die, might be better. So then he's thinking like that. So then he gets this idea. He says, well, you know what? If we could have a trial, if I could put God on trial, you believe this? If I could put God, and I can argue my case, maybe I'll be able to find out why the heck am I suffering like this, and I'm such a pious person. So he's thinking like this. I want to put God on trial and figure out what's going on here. Figure out why am I suffering. So then you know what happens? God appears to him. Not as this Shyamam. No. He appears in a whirlwind. This is very interesting. He appears in a whirlwind. And in the Christian religion, they reject forms of God. They think you can't have a graven image. You know this? Yeah, they say that. Although, if you look at the dictionary, there's different meanings, different translations of image, and one of them is a form conjured up in your imagination. I didn't know that. I looked that up. Because Prabhupada used to say, people say don't worship a graven image. But this form of Gaur Nitai, of Krishna, of Sitaram, it's not something we conjured up in our imagination. But anyway, they generally don't think that God has any form. So anyway, that formless, they think, Krishna can speak through anybody. Krishna can speak through a whirlwind if he wants to. So he spoke to Job, and you know what he said? It was very interesting stuff. He said, where were you in the beginning of time when I created this world? I am who I am. That's it. And you know what Job did? He said, okay, that's it. I bow down to you. I accepted it. I accept it. Guess what happened? Guess. He got all his stuff back. He got new kids and new sons and daughters. He got his cattle back. He got his land back. He got his wealth back. His wife was always there. So what's the moral of the story? The moral of the story is you just hold out and you get the stuff. You get your stuff, right? Isn't it? You can take it that way. You can take it. And I was this junior in high school. I didn't have any religious ideas, but I thought, this really isn't the whole story here. I don't believe this is the whole story. Because, even at that point, I could understand, life, your happiness is not going to come from getting your stuff. So, you know what? He could have said, the whirlwind, God in the whirlwind could have said, The reason you're suffering is because what? I made a deal. He didn't spill the beans. It was right. It was God that. So is that why you're suffering? Because he made it. Is that why you're suffering? That God made a deal with the devil? Is that why? He didn't say that anyway. He could have said. He said. He didn't say, Job, the reason you're suffering is because Adam and Eve sinned, and you're getting the sin from. He didn't say that. You follow? You follow? You follow? I mean, that's some of the philosophy that you hear sometimes. Oops. I'm following here. He didn't say that Job battle for slaughter perhaps was bad. He got bad karma and he was getting punished for that. No, he didn't say that he was a little kid. He pierced an ant with a straw and therefore he didn't say that. No, he didn't say in your previous life you did some bad things. He didn't say that either. And now you're suffering the result. He didn't say, Job, you're a spirit soul. Happiness and distress that you are concerned with is just for the body. And it's like the happiness and distress a person feels in a dream. And he didn't say this verse. He didn't say this verse. What is the verse? Yeah. From the highest planet to the lowest, all are places of misery where birth and death take place. You know, another verse Krishna says, Dukhalayam. You know Dukhalayam? You know what a Oshadaloy is? What's an Oshadaloy? Yeah, place where there's Oshadi, right? Yeah. And what's a Vidyaloy? School, yeah. Himalaya. Himalaya. And what's a Dukhalaya? Yeah, it's a place where there's trouble, misery. If you're looking for happiness, you're making a mistake because it's not here. It's not here. It's a Dukhalaya. So, and then what happens is, this is where the story ends of Job. Job's story ends at this point. And you kind of get the idea that Job lives, what is that? Happily ever after? You believe that? You believe that? No. Because, whatever his cattle, his wealth, all that stuff is going to be taken away at death. So he's not going to be living happily ever after. I mean, for a little bit, maybe, okay, fine. But that's not reasonable for the situation. So even if one thinks you're perfectly happy by getting a good job, a good salary, your children becomes a doctor or a lawyer, you have the freedom to go shopping and buy whatever you want, you have a nice condo, you have strength and vitality, how long will it last? Job didn't live happily ever after because he had to die. So the original question that I asked was what? Why are we suffering? Yeah, why are we suffering? And that question wasn't answered. What's the cause of the suffering? What steps can we take to alleviate it? Can we find true happiness in this world? Or is it limited and temporary? What do you think? I think so, yeah. Krishna says that in Bhagavad Gita. You know, the second chapter, very big. Bhogaisvarya prasaktanam taya prahrita chetasam vyavasyat mukhe buddhi samadho navidhiyate. As long as we're really struggling for and trying to get those things, those material happiness, and we're attached to that, we're not going to be able to get the real happiness, which is eternal and unlimited. Not possible. Prahlad Maharaj said the same thing. Matir na Krishne paratasvatova mito bipadyeta grihavritana adanta gobi vishatam tamishram puna charvita charvinanam. He says, those people who are grihavrata, grihavrata, you know what that is? There's grihavrata or grihamedi and grihastha. Grihastha means a householder, and Griha Medhi means someone who is just focused on squeezing as much happiness out of their material life as possible. That's it. But Grihastha means someone who's fixed in the ashram and the consciousness of using the situation in life to make progress back at it. So Prahlad Maharaj said, as long as you have this vow taken in your life that you're going to enjoy material life as much as possible, you'll never be able to understand God. Not possible. He says. Yeah. So other things in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says also. You know this one? Yehi samsparsha bhoga dukkha yonaya evate adiyantavanta kaunteya nateshu ramate buddha. An intelligent person does not take part in the sources of misery which are due to contact with the material senses. O son of Kunti, those pleasures have a beginning and an end, so the wise man does not delight in them. So this is really very important stuff. Very important stuff. Parents, they can talk to their kids a little strong. Or at least they can sometimes, not always. So there was a king by the name of Rishabdev. You know Rishabdev? Yeah, Rishabdev. He had 100 sons, and before he left the kingdom, left to them sons, he had some really strong words for them. He said, "Mahat sevam." You know this? Mahat sevam dvaram hurvi mukte tamo dvaram yosham sangi sangam. If you Srila Prabhupada, yes, the previous acharyas, Lord Chaitanya, yeah, your guru, the devotees. Oh, what is that? How is that like dry grass? Well, dry grass, you put a little spark there, boom, becomes a little. There was a man named Babubai Jariwala, and he invited there's 20 of them. Can you imagine this? They all stayed at his house for a week, and these were Western devotees, so they were kind of little, I won't say. So, but he hosted them. He was cooking for them. He and his people were cooking there twice daily, 3 times daily, and they arranged every day for them to go out. And he advertised they go out to a certain part of Surat, and they were in Harinam all day for 7 hours every day, and huge crowds would come to hear, and they would shower flowers on the devotees and garlands on them, like that. So it was a wonderful experience for the devotees. And at the end, when the devotees were about to leave, Bhagabai Jariwala went to each of those Hare Krishna devotees and he offered them obeisances. He's a gentleman, like 75. These are 20-year-old guys. And he says, it's been my great honor and pleasure to be able to serve you and your spiritual master. And he said, please take this 51 rupees. At that time, 51 rupees was a big deal. And he said, any offense that I've done to you, please forgive me. He did that to each one of the 20 devotees like that. So then Srila Prabhupada was there, he said, this is a devotee. You follow him. You learn from him. This is wonderful. And the reason, in case you didn't know, is because the Jariwalas and the Kasabwalas are the same community. Did you know that? Jariwala, Kasabwala, they make the special thread for the saris, when they manufacture the saris. And they're both from Surat. And they're in the same community. So remembering how Krishna Kirti was serving devotees, it reminded me just of Bhagabai Jariwala. So if you want to free yourself from suffering and go back to Godhead, Mamupetaya Puna Janmana Vidyate, the most effective way of doing that, Mahat Sevam, find the devotees and serve them with very great interest and care and attention, and then you will become happy and the world will become happy. Service of serving the devotees. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Thank you so much. You have questions or no questions? Yes, sir. Oh, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So sometimes I've heard this doubt that kind of unusual thing, but some people have said, would it be make the devotees too puffed up if I serve them too much? You know, it's a real thing, like especially new people, like, oh yeah, service is a little bit, yeah, maybe I donate something. But it's better for the devotee if I don't serve them too much, otherwise they'll get all puffed up and they'll, it won't be good for them either. Like I know I have to serve devotees, but then I may also serve so much.
Well, that's why we always, that's Mahat Sevam. We want to find, especially those devotees, and we worship and we respect all devotees. And if you know the Upadeshamrita, there's different levels of devotee. One who is just, is fixed in spiritual realization. You find that person, and you serve that person, and that's especially good. We say all that, just like the first offense of chanting Hare Krishna. You know what that is? You know anybody? First offense. Yeah, good, very good. Blasphemy devoted. So I used to think earlier. I used to think, well, those are the devotees who are spreading Krishna consciousness. So the other devotees, I can criticize them. Always someone get away with that. But then I heard Srila Prabhupada saying, he said, any devotee. He says in relation to that, but any devotee. So I was chastened by that. Okay. So yeah, we want to serve any devotee, but particularly we want to serve those who are a little more. That's why in our society we try to give a little special respect to those who have, like, sannyasis preaching Krishna consciousness. Like that. It's very special. That's a very great opportunity. In India, that's the system. Anytime a sannyasi comes in your town, everybody wants to invite them over to their house. Come. You've got to give. That's very wonderful. Give them some prasadam. You can hear the spiritual philosophy from them. So it's a great opportunity. Thank you. I don't know. Yeah. Hare Krishna. All of you. Hare Bol. Hare Krishna. Any other questions? Yeah.
Jewish people, they say they can't pronounce the name of God even though it's written in their book.
Yeah. I mean, it's also in the impersonal kind of view, they say that God has no name. You know that? God has no name. But actually, Srila Prabhupada commented that God has so many names, you don't know where to start and what to end. That's yeah. On one hand, from the impersonal side, they say that God has no form. But that means his form is not material. So God has no name really means he's not no material name, because his name is fully spiritual. That's our understanding. God's name is fully spiritual. And of course, we don't want to take the name of God in vain. That's what they say. God. But that means the same. Like us, we don't want to chant offensively. There's 10 offenses in chanting. And so we don't take the name of God in vain. No, we chant Krishna. Why do we chant Hare Krishna? Because Krishna, Lord Chaitanya asked us to. And because we want it, it's not because we're just doing it casually, but we want to do service for Krishna. Say, Hare Krishna. If you look at the mantra, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, where do you find in the Hare Krishna mantra, the translation of Hare Krishna mantra we often give is, O Lord, O energy of the Lord, please engage me in your service. Right? You've heard this before. So where in the mantra do you find service? Where do you find that? Where do you find it? Where is it?
calling them to do something.
Yeah. I mean, people. There's different things like that, but we're addressing that the attitude of calling is calling. Why? Just like you say, Madan Gopal. That means there's some meaning behind that Madan Gopal. Oh, Madan Gopal. There's a different meaning, but because I'm addressing in a certain way, that has the way I'm addressing has meaning, right? So Hare Krishna. I'm addressing Krishna. Please, let me serve you, please. And if you do that, guess what? He'll allow you to do service. He'll give you the opportunity to service. And that'll be wonderful. Your life will become very exciting, wonderful. Hare Krishna. Yes, sir.
Just follow up from your answer to the first question. You say any devotee, right, in reference to the person offense, does that exclude people of other faiths, but there may be devotees of Christian faith or Muslim?
Yeah, means unnecessarily criticize. That's why, generally speaking, when Srila Prabhupada would address, other philosophers or philosophers, he would say, "What is their philosophy?" And he would address the philosophy instead of the person. That's generally generally speaking, he would do that. So we don't direct it at the person, but at the philosophy, especially in places like in public. There was one. I'll tell a little story. I know it's in a time. As Prabhupada was, he used to go on a morning walk. Have you ever been to Juhu Bombay? Juhu Bombay, yeah. There's a big, nice beach, and Prabhupada would walk every morning on the beach. And there was a doctor named Dr. Patel who used to come along with him. And he would always say he's a Vaishnava, but then he would speak all kinds of impersonal philosophy. So devotees were kind of confused, and they say, "How can you? Is he a Vaishnava or is he a Mayavadi? We can't tell." So Prabhupada says, "I'll tell you a story." He said, there was once a guy who knew all these different languages. He knew them all perfectly. With great accent, he could speak fluently in so many languages, and nobody could find out what his real language was. So one guy said, "I'll find out. I know how to do it." So one day, while the guy was talking, he came up behind him. He gave him a slap. And the guy starts cursing in his original language, of course. That's how we found out. So Prabhupada, the next day, he gave a little push about an impersonal philosopher, and this person became really angry and didn't come for days. So you could tell that he had his real idea was impersonalism. Anyway, Hare Krishna. Thank you all. Panchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhye vacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Thank you for listening.